Assalamu alaikum. My name is Kimberly. My Islamic name is Hadija. I reverted to Islam in 2017 and I found myself struggling in the faith. I started this channel as a way to build community, learn more about Islam, and hold myself accountable. It is going really well. I am getting a lot of support, a lot of feedback, and tons of dua from around the world. So thank you. I am still working on the 5 pillars of Islam. I'm on the second pillar, which is Salah, and translates into prayer. Muslims can pray whenever they want to pray. There are special prayers for different events, but they are obligated to pray 5 times a day. These special obligatory prayers go by the name of Fard. 15 minutes before Fard, there is a call to prayer. This call to prayer is called the Adhan, which translates into announcement. The Adhan is always done in Arabic. It is done in a loud and melodious voice. Most of the Muslim majority countries actually use loudspeakers to call the Adhan, and it can be beautiful. If you ever have the time to go to Dubai in the middle of that hot desert and listen to the Adhan as the sun is coming up, you will feel a direct connection to Allah. I have also heard the Adhan in a country like Afghanistan, where the speakers are old and they're scratchy and they're tinny, and that Adhan has its own beauty. The Adhan is called by a person that is well respected in the community, is pure of heart, and has a good knowledge of Islam. This person is called the muezzin. The muezzin is always going to be a man for the public azan. The idea is that if a man hears the sweet, melodious, feminine voice of a woman, he has a high chance of turning away from his Salah and not being able to focus on his prayer, turning away from Allah and thinking of a woman. However, there are a lot of pockets of female prayer popping up all over the world. In a case where it's only sisters in the prayer room, a woman can call the Adhan. I'm going to put a link below of a small news clip that my sister had found for me. It's a group of Muslim sisters in LA who once a month they have Juma pray together, and it's just women, and the muezzin is female. So what happened was, once the Quran was revealed to our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he basically had to create the religion of Islam for us. We heard in my last video the story of the Isra and the Miraj, where it was confirmed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that the Muslims pray 5 times a day. So, literally 5 times a day, our dear Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would go to the streets and just kind of go, hey, everyone, it's time to pray. Come pray. And he wanted more. He didn't want bells because the bells called Christians to prayer. He didn't want horns because the horns called the Jews to prayer. And he wasn't sure what to use for the Muslims yet. So he reached out to his close group of friends to help him kind of brainstorm an idea. One of his very close friends and a fellow warrior went by the name of Abdullah ibn Zayed. One evening, Abdullah ibn Zayed was thinking about what to do to call the Muslims to prayer, and he fell asleep. While he was sleeping, he had a dream, and he saw a man dressed in green carrying a bell in his hand. And he went up to the man in green and said, "O servant of God, are you going to sell that bell?" And the man looked at him and said, "Why? What are you going to do with it?" And Abdullah said, "I'm going to use it to call the people to prayer." The man in green looked at him and said, "Would you like to hear something better?" And Abdullah looked at him and said, "Why not?" And the man in green goes on to reveal the words of what became the Adhan. I'm going to put the Adhan up for you and leave it up long enough that you have time to screenshot it for new Muslims like me that didn't know what they were saying. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدر رسول الله أشهد أن محمدر رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الصلاة خير من النوم الصلاة خير من النوم الله أكبر الله أكبر After waking, Abdullah bin Zayed went to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and told him about the dream and told him all the words that were said. The Prophet absolutely loved it. He looked at Abdullah and he said, I don't want you to be the one that calls people to prayer. Our most beautiful, resonant, melodious voice we have is from Bilal. Bilal was a black slave who had converted to Islam. I'm going to do a video on Bilal probably next week. So Abdullah spent time teaching the words of the Adhan to Bilal. And Bilal became our first muezzin and would call the announcement to prayer. So when the muezzin gets ready to call the prayer, he turns his face to Qibla, which is the direction of the Kaaba in Mecca. And he takes his right index finger and puts it over his right ear, and his left index finger and puts it over his left ear. Sometimes the muezzin will actually put their fingers in their ears. I learned that this came from a hadith that tells the story that Bilal was actually having difficulty getting the end of the Adhan out loudly enough. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, instructed him to stick his fingers in his ears and then call the Adhan, and it worked. So once the Adhan is called, the Muslims now have 15 minutes to get ready for prayer. Okay? So next week, let's see what comes next. Assalamu alaikum.